On this week's show, what's the difference between a business and a job?
In the news, 9 million people pulled a sickie in 2019.
And we're going to be answering any business-related questions. Hi, I'm Russell Leeds.
Hey, my name's Alasdair Cunningham.
And welcome to the very first episode of the Entrepreneur's Blueprint podcast. You guys might have seen our other podcast, the Property Investors Podcast. If not, you can feel free to go and check that out. But
yeah,
we want to be.
I'm excited. I'm excited.
It feels the same but different.
Yeah, it's good. I've always wanted to do a business podcast or a business media, and it's very, very good that we're doing it.
Well, funnily enough, I mean, both of us have business backgrounds.
Yes, 100%.
So obviously, we work with Samuel Leeds. Samuel went straight into property, was doing property, whereas us, we've kind of done the other way around in that we've built businesses and then used the money from the businesses to invest in property.
Yeah,
which I actually think personally is the best way to make money.
Yeah, obviously, we've both got a considerable amount of business experience. Each of us are talking. I mean, I've been in business since 22. I'm now 37, so it's 15 years. And yourself you've got over 10, 12 years experience in business. So we've both been there, and we both started small businesses. So we can give over a lot of advice about where we went wrong and also where we excelled. I know it's not always been.
Alasdair's here for the went wrong.
Yeah,
I'm
I know
here for the excelled.
It's not always been. Business is hard. Oh, blimey! Business is hard. You know that.
Hand gesturing's hard for you, though, isn't it?
Business is very, very difficult. Yeah. It's not always easy. But the rewards are phenomenal when you get there, because the reward will always come after the hard work. So.
Well,
that's my motivational speech for today.
There you go. Hopefully you were very motivated by that. So on this week's show, we're going to be looking at the differences between a business and a job.
Yeah.
Now, when I first started in business, I was self-employed.
You had a job then?
And I was very much would have said I was running a business.
You had a job.
But Alasdair seems to know better. So go on. Why?
I'll tell you why you had a job, because I talk about this a lot, and I had the exact same. I was self-employed, had a small business on a self-employed basis, and I was out working very, very hard, working very long hours. But the reality is, if you cannot take time off from your business, so could you answer this question? When you first started, could you take 6 months off from that business and still come back to a still profitable business?
Well, it wasn't profitable with me there, to be fair.
Okay, so
to begin with,
if you took time off and came back and it was actually now profitable, that's good. But was it?
No, I couldn't. No. The second I stopped working, I stopped getting paid.
Yeah, so then it's a job. And that, I think in business, I think the sooner you realize that if you need to be able to leave your business and it still work, it still be profitable, and it still turn over, and it still serve its customers. If your business solely depends on you and your actions and your input, then it's not a business, it's a job.
Okay. Do you think there's anything? See, a lot of people probably watching this. I mean, the idea of this podcast, the reason we do this, is for A, people that are in a job at the moment and wanting to set up their own business and give them advice, or B, they're wanting to grow their business that they're in.
100%.
So, do you think there's anything wrong with? I mean, I was brought up by entrepreneurs, so to speak. In that, my mom ran her own hairdressing business. Mm-hmm. My dad ran his own entertainment business. Yeah. But it was on a self-employed kind of level. It was They advertise, they get a client, they go and do it. Yeah. So the thing is with those businesses is that you kind of do everything, don't you?
Yes. Yeah.
And you do the advertising, you do the sales, you do the admin, you do the delivery.
You become a jack of all trades. That's what happens.
Is there anything wrong with that?
I'm not saying there is. Just to clarify my earlier point about self-employed people being in a job, I'm not criticising that by any means. I think it's wonderful. I think it's the first step to business, 100%. Like, self-employed people are the backbone of this country. I'm not criticising it, but all I'm saying is that you need to realise that it is a well-paid job. That's what it is at the minute.
Or in many cases.
If you want to make it into a business, you have to then start systemizing it. You have to make it so that it's profitable without you. So you have to effectively take yourself out of the business, and it should still work. Then it becomes a business. But let's just say if you're a plumber, you've got your van, you go out, you've got your plumbing round, you've got all your customers that come to you. Most plumbers, unless they've scaled the business to having lots of plumbers working for them, work for themselves, if they're not out fixing somebody's boiler system, they're not getting paid. If they want to take a month off and go to Barbados for a month, it's likely they're not getting paid. And it was like me with one of my businesses. I used to own a commercial vehicle business, and the business was I had a workshop. We used to fix buses and coaches. Now I made many mistakes in that business, but I also had many successes, and I learned a ton. And one of the things I learned very early on was that I need to make the business not about me. But the problem is the business was all about me. It was all about my skill level, my knowledge, my contacts.
Oh man!
And it was hard. It was hard, mate. I know why you're thinking it was hard, but it was hard because everything revolved around me. I wanted some time off. The place shut down. If I wanted to go away on holiday, I didn't get paid. That's not a business. No. In theory, it's actually better having a job, because at least if you go on holiday, you get paid and you can pull a sickie. I mean, that's what we're going to talk about in the news. About 9 million people pulled a sickie last year, and I think, was it last year or was it this year? I
think it was last year.
Or was it last month? That'd be shocking if it was last month.
It was last year. Yeah.
Last year, 9 million people pulled a sickie, but we'll get there in a minute. That's my biggest bugbear, but okay, never mind. So yeah, I mean, what do you think?
I would say it depends on what you want.
Yeah.
It depends on what you want. So a lot of people want to become self-employed because they want to be their own boss.
Yeah.
But I read a book. I can't remember where I heard this, but I love the quote. The best thing about being self-employed is that you get to choose which 18 hours a day you work.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
You know, and although being self-employed is a lot of people go that route. The problem with it is you do have to work very hard.
Yeah, you have to work really hard.
A lot of people don't make money. 80% of small businesses fail in the first 5 years, and 80% of those successful businesses fail in the next 5. So most businesses fail. Most entrepreneurs don't make very much money.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? However, I think it's because there's no training for it.
Yeah.
I think it's because people don't know what they're doing, and people just think like, I like the idea of being. Let's say they're a plumber, and they think, look how much money my boss is making. I could do this, but they don't realise the difficulties, and because they've got to do everything. I mean, who is good? Who is good at everything?
Yeah.
No one's good at everything.
Think about when I first started my business. You're right in the fact there's no training, and how I got to my first business. My first business came because I was working for Stagecoach Buses, okay, the big bus company. And I was thinking to myself, look, I did not want to be in a position where there's guys that had worked there for 40 years and they're earning like £400, £450 a week, right? And I thought, that sucks. If you've been somewhere for 40 years and that's what you're earning, like, I was like, there's no way I'm going to work in a garage getting filthy dirty every day to be in a position where I've been there for 30, 40 years and I'm barely able to pay my bills. And I'm living week to week. There's no way that's not my life. So I said, that's it, I'm out of this place and I'm going to start my own place, because look, at the end of the day, I didn't want to be an employee, but so I wanted to employ people. So I took the leap and I said, look, I'm out of here. I'm gone. I'm going to start my own place. But I had no formal training on how to start a business. I knew nothing. I knew literally how to fix buses. I knew everything about the vehicles, but I didn't know how to run it and make it into a business that actually paid me a lot more money. And that took 3 or 4 years. And I'm not going to lie. I mean, I started that business with basically a week's wages, like 450 quid. And I'm not going to lie, it was incredibly difficult for the first 3 or 4 years. Because the first 2 years really was quite difficult, very, very difficult, because you were literally robbing Peter to pay Paul. You were living week by week. You were living sort of job to job, and sometimes the money going out every month was way more than the money you even invoiced that month. And then you've got all sorts of issues with customers paying you, and it was just a nightmare. But I had no training in that. I had no business training. I didn't know how to market. I didn't know how to sell. Yeah, sell. And selling's a massive thing in business.
Well, normally the people that start a business can do the actual thing. So you mentioned plumbing. So they think, I am a good plumber.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine.
That's like 20% of it.
No, yeah.
And now you've got to be able to do all the others. So I would That's the problem. So the job is what? A job is where either you work for someone else or you're self-employed, you're running it as a job. I.e., the difference is you're trading your time for money.
Yes, you're still trading your time for money, yeah. 100%.
One of the things that we love about property investing is that you buy a property and then it brings you cash flow.
Yeah.
But businesses can be the exact same.
100% if you systemize them.
In fact, businesses in many ways can be even better. Because they can bring in more cash flow than a property. Now, the great thing about property is obviously it's going to go up in value and it's safe and it's sitting there. Businesses are different. But in terms of generating passive income, you can do that. If you know how to do it right, you can do that from a business. So
as soon as I realized, I went, like I say, my first business, I got it to last about 9 years until I finally pulled the plug on it because it was never going to be I couldn't see how I could make it so that it wasn't about me. I just didn't have that experience or knowledge. It was making good money, but I couldn't see how I could make it so it didn't revolve around Alasdair Cunningham. All my clients knew it as Alasdair Cunningham. It didn't matter what the name of the business was. It should have just been called Alasdair Cunningham's business because that's how it was. And I didn't know how to get round the whole getting away from me and about the business. And in the end, I just
got to do it slowly. So when I set up, I was talking about my first business, self-employed entertainer, right? So I was doing it, and what I would do is I'd get bookings through an agent or through my website or whatever, and they'd hire Russell Leeds. And Russell Leeds would go along, like you mentioned, Alasdair Cunningham. Russell Leeds would go along. Russell Leeds would do the entertainment. Russell Leeds would settle the invoice. Russell Leeds would do the accounts, etc.,
marketing, everything. Yeah.
So the first thing that I replaced was the actual job, the service,
the service you offer. Yeah.
So I started getting other people, and I would train them my way of doing it. Along with my business partner, and we grew the team. So that was the very first thing that we changed. So I would do everything else. I did the sales, did the marketing, did the website, did the actually, I'll tell a lie. The very first thing was getting in people to do like the accounts.
Okay. Yeah.
So getting an accountant, bookkeeper. Then I started replacing the entertainers. And the cool thing about that is there's only so much money I can make by me going and doing the shows.
100%.
So there's one person doing a show. Let's say on a weekend I could do like 2 over a Saturday, 1 or Sunday maybe. It's like 3, 4 on a weekend. However, as soon as I replaced me with someone else, I used to pay them half and I took half. As soon as I got 2 people, I'm making as much money as I was when I was doing the shows, but now I'm doing nothing. But now I can go 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. I ended up with 30 odd entertainers and then people in the office as well, because then the next thing I replaced was the sales calls, because now suddenly I'm doing loads of sales calls, so I got someone in to answer the phone, and it was just very slowly replacing yourself. So if you're going to start with no money, which all my businesses I've started with no money, you can't immediately hire people.
No.
So you've got to get your hands dirty. You've got to do the nitty gritty.
Do you know what I think when I speak about a lot? So at the minute, right, this is a thing I've got going on at the minute. I've got somebody trying to get me to invest £30,000 for a business startup. They want to invest. They want me to invest in their business startup, and I'm like, okay, so let's have a look at any sort of let's look at projections for the next 2 or 3 years, business plan, ideas, what you're doing, and all that sort of stuff. And they're very much like, well, we'll just do that, we'll do that. And I'm like, look, it's not as simple as that. I need to, he thinks that he can start taking a salary from it every single month of £2,500.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, it's not as simple as that.
No.
The business is going to be in debt of £30,000 to me, so it needs to pay that back before you even take a salary. Well, that's not fair. So what do you mean it's not fair? Of course it's fair. That's business, and a lot of people go into it with a very misguided understanding.
You've got to go in with nothing.
They're not prepared to go in with nothing. They're not prepared to go in and not take a salary for a year, because understandably most people need their salary to live. But the reality is, if you want to start a business and grow a business, what's the biggest cause of business failure in the first year? Cash flow. Biggest cause, without a shadow of a doubt, cash flow. So if you want to go into any business, cash flow is king. Nothing else. Cash flow. Money coming into the business. And more importantly, money staying in the business. Not like you suddenly getting 10 grand one month and then blowing it up and going to Vegas. That's another problem I see so many times with people, where they've gone from a job of earning £1,500 a month to starting a business, and then suddenly they start making a couple of £1,000, £3,000, £4,000, £5,000 a month, But then suddenly their expenses have gone from living off £1,500 a month to living off £5,000 a month. And then they get a bad month, and then boom shaka, before you know it, the business is gone. And that's what happens. It's the reality is that's what happens. People drain their businesses of cash.
Well, what's the definition of an entrepreneur?
An entrepreneur the definition is somebody who's prepared to take financial risk for financial gain.
Yeah. So
in a nutshell,
if you're setting up your own business, is it a financial risk?
Of course it is.
Of course it is. Would you encourage people? Let's say you've got see, I never had to do this because I was so young.
Yeah.
The beautiful thing about being really young is you kind of you put in much less risk.
Well, you become fearless, don't you? Did you have children when you started your business?
No.
Okay. Yeah, so you become fearless.
I had no children.
No, nothing. What you got to lose, really?
I didn't really have anything to lose.
So you got to weigh up what have you got to lose to what have you got to gain. Now I'll tell you, this is how I started my first business. I've told you I started it with a week's wages. Now when this was in 2002. I was buying my very first property. And I remember the date. The mortgage was due. The property was due to complete on the 28th of November. But I'd been wanting to get out of my business. The company I was working for, Stagecoach, like for months prior to it. But I knew I couldn't leave there until the mortgage completed. Because if they found out I left my employment, they might have declined the mortgage or something like that. So I literally remember the day the property completed is the day I told them I was leaving. I waited until it completed, got the keys, moved in, and that's it. I said, oh, by the way, I'm leaving. And I remember my first ever month in that house, I had no salary coming in. So Lisa, my wife, she was very much panicking because obviously I'd given up a job, had no income, and I decided to go out and start myself. But I thought, there's no way. It's now or never. It's now or never. And I'm not happy living off like a mediocre salary and being somebody else's sort of a employee for the rest of my life. So that's how I done it. So I started with no money and high risk. But yeah, it's amazing. Like I'm prepared to do anything, as are you, legally and ethically, obviously, to get what we want out of life because we want a better life. Yeah. The reality is most people aren't. That's the reality. They say they are.
They want it safe and comfortable. You've got to be able to go out. The other thing is for me, is being an entrepreneur is so fun. It's so varied and different, and exciting, and it's like a roller coaster journey. But I wouldn't try. For me, that's the kick you get out of it. Is the
business is fun, and if you make it fun, you'll learn every day. You'll learn every day. You'll learn how to sell every day. You'll learn how to deal with customers every day. You'll learn how to market, how to handle objections. You'll learn how to face your fears because I've had to do so much in my businesses over the last sort of 15, 16 years that I would never have done. And I go back to some of the people I used to work with as employees and they're still in the same place. They're still earning the same amount of money and they're still the same negative, the same sort of employee mindset, which there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not criticizing that. I'm just saying that's not for me. I didn't want that. I wanted a bigger life. But they look at me like I'm this super, super successful person. Like, wow, and they all use me as I used to work with him. He used to work here. Like I'm like a hero, and it's not. And it's the same as you.
It's not. No,
it's not. It's just we're just out there, just doing it. Decided that we want something more out of life. And for us, business, that was business. And then I used, obviously, business led me into property. So
as a result, it's important picking the right business. And next week on the podcast, so please do tune in again next week. We're going to be talking about the 5 things that you need to look for when you're starting a business or with your business now. The 5 things to look for to make sure that you can scale it into a business, because some businesses, some opportunities just won't work as a business, and they're only ever destined to be a self-employed job. So if you put all your time in it, you see people on Dragon's Den, don't you, when they go on and they've picked a terrible idea and the dragons are questioning on them, and you can see the dragons thinking this is terrible, but this person just won't quit. And they've put all in there, more money and sometimes you need to know when to quit.
I was going to say biggest rule and biggest lesson in business is just know when to quit.
But you hear people say all the time, don't quit. But sometimes you need to know when to quit. So it might be that you've started a business and you look at it and you go, well, you'll find out next week. But you look at it and go, you know what? this actually probably isn't it's not a very good business, and maybe I need to switch to something else. So next week, you guys check it out. We're going to be talking about the 5 things that you need to do in order to make sure that you've picked the right business and what to look for when starting a business from afresh.
Yeah.
Right, it's now time for this.
Okay, so in the news this week, we have an article, and in 2019, there was 9 million sickies pulled.
Yeah, so this is the article right here. So some 9 million people claimed sick days last year because they found their jobs too painful, in quotes. A survey suggested, released on National Sickie Day. I didn't know it was a National Sickie Day.
Of course there is. We live in Britain. Of course there's a National Sickie Day.
At the first Monday of February. That's today.
That's today.
That we obviously, you guys...
Is that really today?
Yeah.
Is it 1st February? The office is half empty.
Well, that's why. Thank you for coming in, Nick. I appreciate it. It's National Sickie Day today. So first Monday, 3rd of Feb, National Sickie Day. Where more employees call in sick than any other day of the year. The survey also revealed that 12 million workers went to work when genuinely unwell, raising concerns about work culture and workloads. It comes just days after Friday the 31st, considered the most popular day for workers to quit their job.
So my theory on it is February the 1st is the day that everyone phones in
the
sick,
first Monday in February.
Because everyone's waiting for payday at the end of January. So they get payday because that's the first payday after Christmas, and they've all gone out and blown it up at the weekend, and they're all too ill to come into work. That's probably what's happened.
You reckon?
Dude, I've got not much time for people doing sick days. I really haven't. I think
the UK is not too bad though. I'm looking at a map. We're ranked 4th when it comes to taking the least sick leave over the year.
Yeah, look, how many days off have you had sick in your? Do you
want to hear the stats?
Go on.
So I'll give you the worst and the best.
Mm-hmm.
So in Switzerland, average sick day 1.6 days a year.
So they're obviously the best.
That's the best.
Yeah, of course they are, Switzerland. Because look at the culture. Look at the.
But we're 4th best. So they're 1.6. We're 4.4. That's the average.
What's the worst?
The worst is Bulgaria, 22.
Oh.
That's a month.
That really surprises me. That really does surprise me.
And Germany's the second worst, 18.3.
Wow.
So before you go on your little rant about English workers, bear in mind,
I've got nothing against English workers.
Only Switzerland, Ukraine, and Malta are better than us.
I've got nothing against people, workers in the country. Nothing against them whatsoever. They're the backbone of the Britain. But what pains me and what bugs the hell out of me is people are so quick to take a sick day nowadays. They're so quick to just have a day off because they're not feeling great or because they've been upset because of an episode of Love Island or something like that. They're just so quick to have a day off sick.
I feel like in our office that just isn't the case.
Our office is slightly different. Yeah, I agree with that. Our office is very good. But I hear so many times, like I know so many people, like friends and that, they'll text me randomly during the week and say, "Oh, what are you up to?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm working." And they say, "Oh, just seeing if you're free, what to catch up." And I'm like, "Well, aren't you supposed to be at work?" "No, I'm not going in today."
Do you know what I think it is though? I personally would put the onus on the company. I would say as an employer, it's your job to motivate your staff so they care about the mission and what you're doing.
100%. Yeah, I get that. 100%.
If your employees
100%.
care about what you're doing, our marketing team, for example, we'll talk about marketing because they're right here. Cheers, bro. The marketing team, they will stay till 8-9 p.m. at night if the job's not done to get it done.
In fairness, like it's a really good team, isn't it? There's 5 really good people in there. There's this one guy, like,
shh, he's right there.
Nah, in fairness, like they're really good.
They're really good. Really the whole team's like that though, because you've got to get your people. See, I don't think of them as employees really.
No, I know.
I think of them as like mini partners in the company that are wanting the same thing as you. It's just about if you treat them well.
Do you know what it comes? Sorry, go on.
Go on, you go.
It comes with like an ethos, doesn't it? Like our staff have an ethos of like we're on a mission, we're doing this, and it's not a 9-to-5 mission. It's whatever we've got to do to get the job done within reason. We're not expecting them to be here 24 hours a day, and we expect them to have a life because we encourage them to have a life outside of work, obviously.
Yeah.
But my point being is that's why these guys are prepared.
But
to
then
stay.
you need to reward them. So like we've just upped our holidays, given all the members of staff 4 days extra holiday a year because they work really hard.
So they get 12 now.
It's 25 now.
I don't know.
20, it was the minimum, which is 20. 21's the minimum, and we've upped it to 25 because otherwise, if you don't want people to feel hard done to.
No, 100%. I agree with that. We look after our staff well. I'm sure they'd all agree with that. But my biggest bugbear is like people just so easily just take off time off work because they just don't care about their jobs, and for them it's just maybe they're too tired or whatever. It's just like, come on, grow up, man. If you ever want to get anywhere in life, you've got to get out of bed for the first instance and actually get to work.
But I think you've got to be flexible with them as well. So, like, for example, let's say they've worked a late night before. See,
yeah,
for me,
100%.
Then don't come in at 9 tomorrow. Come in at 11.
Yeah, come in at 11.
If you've worked, it's about giving them responsibility.
Do you know, there's one of my. I got two big bugbears with business and with staff. The first one is constantly phoning in sick, and constantly having any reason to.
Did you have that at any of your previous companies?
Mate, used to do my head in. I'll tell you a story in a minute. Right. First one is people just calling in sick whenever they want to call in sick.
Yeah. And
the second one is clockwatching.
Mm-hmm.
And this was bad in my old business. Clockwatching. So that they're desperate that they arrive bang on time or late. So let's say they start the 9 to 5. They arrive on time at 9, but then at 5 they're bang ready to leave the office at 5. But actually they've stopped working about 4:30. And they're getting all packed up. They're doing all that.
A bit like when you're at school.
Yeah, mate.
And you're looking at the clock waiting for your lunch break.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I can't be standing that. So in my workshop business, we used to have clocking in, clocking out machines because obviously we had a couple of members of staff, and it was always funny that they would always get there on time. They'd always bang in at 9 o'clock in the morning. Now I allowed them like 3 or 4 minutes to be late, so if they clocked in at like, not me, my accountant,
9:03,
we would still pay them at 9. But then they would mess around for like half an hour, getting their overalls on, getting ready to work. So they're not actually going to work till 9:30, quarter to 10. And then at 10:15 they're having a friggin' tea break, and it's like, I'm already annoyed at this point, okay? But then we get to the end of the day and it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so they have a cup of tea, whatever. And that's it. That's them winding down for the rest of the day now. They're now just getting ready to wash up and get gone home. So by 4:15, they're taking their overalls off. They're getting their hands washed. So they're ready. They're all stood there at the clock machine waiting to go at 5 o'clock, waiting for it to go from 4:59 to 5. Ding, and then they go. But you're losing an hour and a half a day out of that.
Do you know how I think you get around it?
Go on.
I think task-driven rather than time-driven.
Yeah. Good idea. Very good idea.
So it's like, these are your jobs.
Get them done.
If you complete them, go home.
Yeah. And another thing that with sick days used to wind me up. This is one of the things that and in fairness, I made a lot of mistakes in my business. I'm not going to sit here and was perfect. I made problems with staff. I made mistakes in how I employed them and how I set the rules and all that sort of stuff. But I went to 2008. I went to Monza Formula 1 weekend.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was away Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So my business was still having to trade. But on the Thursday, as far as I'm aware, the staff all went to work. But on the Friday, the three staff, not one of them arrived on time. Like, they all arrived 9:30, quarter to 10. They all got in whenever they wanted. And they all said the clocking machine wasn't working, so they all signed the card manually. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine, whatever. But they all done what they had to do. They had a little tidy up, and then they all left at 10:30, 11 o'clock. To go home for the weekend. The thing is, I had an electrician booked to come in that day, and the electrician rocked up at 1 o'clock, and my phone keeps going crazy, and I'm answering it, and Dave's speaking to me and goes, look, I'm at the workshop, there's nobody here, and I'm like, there must be. I employ 3 people, one of them must friggin' be there. Turns out they'd all gone home early, and then when I got back, I didn't say nothing to them. But when I got back Monday, I looked at the CCTV, and what happened was they come in and signed themselves in, right? And they then went home early, and then one person come back at 5 o'clock and clocked them all out. One person. He's the one that lived like a mile and a half away. And I saw it on CCTV, and that was the point where I said, do you know what, I'm done with this. I'm done, absolutely done. But my point is so annoying, clock watching.
Because you've got people that are purely there for the money.
They're purely there for the money, and they're just taking the piss. And it probably my fault. Of course, it's my fault. I shoulder the blame because obviously it's my business.
It does come from the top.
It comes
from your
100%,
job
100%.
to motivate them, to get them working, to get them task driven, to get them. Your job as a leader is to sell the vision. Look,
hold on, you just summed it up. Your job as a
leader.
Yeah, you're a leader. You're a business leader, 100%. And maybe in my earlier days, I wasn't a leader. I was treating it as a job. 100%.
There you go.
You just summed it up. But yeah, I mean, 9 million people taking sickies. What does that cost the economy? What does that cost the business?
There's a lot of people. 9 million. I mean, how many workers are there there's 70 million people in the UK?
Yeah.
So a lot of them are going to be kids and old. How many people are going to be doing?
What percentage of them are workers? So let's just say 60% of them are of age where they could be at work.
So you probably talk, so that'd probably be what, like 40, probably 25% of workers, probably, something like that. I don't know.
Do you know another thing that about this whole sick pay malarkey? I know somebody who works for a factory, and he already gets 4 weeks a year plus bank holidays as holiday. So he gets like 6 weeks a year paid holiday. They also part of the policy in this company is they're entitled to 6 weeks a year paid sick pay.
Ugh.
Right?
So he takes 10 weeks, does he?
How many weeks? I was going to say, how many weeks do you think he has? He has 12 weeks.
12 weeks, sorry, yeah.
So he has his 6 weeks off paid, and then he has another 6 weeks. And I say to him, and the company have now stopped this, by the way, and I'll tell you, that was funny. So I say to him, I said, well, look, why do you have that other 6 weeks? He goes, well, I'm entitled to it, no? He goes, they offer it, I'm taking it.
People do become very entitled.
It's the mindset. You're not entitled to anything, you motherfucker. Yeah, come on, you're entitled to go to work, get paid, and have a fair amount.
Can we bleep that out?
Sorry, you're not entitled to anything.
Yep.
You're entitled to go to work, get paid, have a fair wage, do your job, have fair time off. Not rinse the company because you feel you're entitled to rinse the company.
I agree.
The company have since changed that policy, and the whole factory went on strike. Yeah, over it. But it was going to save the company like a lot. I don't even want to put a figure on it, but it's six, seven figures.
Oh my goodness! Right, there you go. It's now time for this. Okay, so this is the part of the show where you ask questions to us, usually through Instagram, and we answer. So if you want to ask questions for future shows, my Instagram is @Russell Leeds. We'll punch up on the screen there. If you're listening to this, though, I'll just spell it out. RUSSELL, Russell, and then Leeds, LEEDS. Or you can do it to Alasdair, whose Instagram is
Alasdair _Cunningham. I'm not going to even attempt to spell it because of the Scottish accent. Nick, please put a link up.
Alasdair. Yeah, we'll put a link in the description, okay? So you can ask us on Instagram. What we'll do, we'll put posts up once a week where you can comment. So with just a picture of us, you can comment on there rather than messaging us because we don't always see all the messages. So I hope you guys get that. Cool. So the first one that I've had, I know you've had a couple of messages as well.
Yeah, I've got a couple.
From Ashley Rudland. He said, "What is the most impactful business book you've read?" So we'll both answer.
Okay, I've read 2 that have been really, really good, and they really made me open my eyes to systemization. The first 3, actually 3. The first one was Rich Dad Poor Dad, because that taught me a lot about investing. I'm coming away from the cash flow quadrant, small business to becoming an investor, real business. Okay, that's the first one. The second one was a book called The E-Myth. It's a very, very good book. I highly advise everyone reads that book.
It's funny. I read that book and loved it. I've actually changed my mind a little bit on it.
Well, I read it 2000. That's my accountant gave it to me. He advised me to read it, and that must have been 12, 13 years ago. But I'm going to reread it now.
Reread it. See what you think. Basically, the book is, if you haven't read it, it is a very good book. It makes a lot of very, very good points, right? But basically, the book is about, it's called The Entrepreneur's Myth, which I think E-Myth is a terrible name. Because I would think it was like the E-Myth. It sounds like it's talking about electronic mail, email, e-sign. So for me, it's like the electronic myth.
Okay.
What's it on about? But it's Entrepreneur's Myth. But it's talking about you don't need great people. You need ordinary people. I'm as bad as you. You need ordinary people and you need great systems.
Yeah.
So you get your great systems, put your ordinary people doing it, and that's how you make a great business.
Yeah.
Which I thought,
Why not
Brilliant.
just have both?
But then you look at someone like Google, and they're about having great people to help you make the great systems. And what. And I thought, how arrogant am I to think that I'm so great, I can just put the great system in place and get any old idiot to come in. And I've changed my mind a little bit. I think you actually need great people.
Yeah. And the third good book that I've got is from none other than yourself. The Entrepreneur's Blueprint.
It makes your top 3.
Yeah, it does actually, bro. I've never told you that before. And I read, it's not been released yet, but I read you sent me the scripts of it before it come out.
But it doesn't come out.
The unedited
So
version.
technically it doesn't count.
No. But I actually found it really insightful, really interesting. Actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be.
Wow, that's like a backhanded slap you in the face compliment, isn't it?
No, honestly, I've actually read it a couple of times now, and I thought I can't wait for the actual final edition to hit the streets.
It should be coming out very soon, but thank you, bro.
So
I appreciate that.
Make sure you get that. What about yourself?
So for me, I would say best business book. There's so many good ones. I really like The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, which is all about, and this is true, man. I mean, a lot of people say, a couple of things that people say. Number one, you've either got the entrepreneur's genes or you haven't, and I don't believe that at all. I think anyone can be an entrepreneur. It's not difficult to do. But the Compound Effect is about how it's just knowing what to do and just taking everyone knows how to be slim. You know what you've got to do. People just don't do it.
Yeah.
It's easy to do, but it's easy not to do as well. It's about discipline, and it's about just these are the steps. The steps are very easy. They're in my book, the basic step, Entrepreneur's Blueprint, how do you be an entrepreneur? It's very easy to do. It's also very easy not to do. The Compound Effect is all about don't give up, keep doing the small things, and then the results will come. Just trust in the results.
Yeah.
Actions lead to results. Do the actions, and then just eventually the results will come. So, yeah.
Any more books?
Any more books?
I'm going to add one actually, and you told me to read this recently. I don't remember the name of it, but the Google book, the book about the Google offices and how
Work rules.
Work rules. That's it. That's a really good.
Well, that's the book I read that made me question the E-myth.
Yeah,
I've read that a few years ago, and I was like,
We read that when we moved to. I read that when we moved to London with the offices, because you talked to me about how creating the work environment.
By Laszlo. Someone
I can't remember. It's
a good book.
Very, very good book. Okay, so I got another question, and this one, let me just sign in quickly. I need my face. Okay, there we go. This question is from somebody called Dan-Fox. Okay, so I don't know who that is, but anyway, Dan-Fox. This is for you, my friend. What is, if you had to name your biggest business failure, what would it be?
Can I just ask? Is his name Dan-Fox? Like, is it written?
No, Dan Dash.
There's a dash.
Fox.
So his name's not Dan-Fox. It's Dan Fox.
That would actually be a really cool name, wouldn't it? Dan-Fox.
Dan-Fox. Yeah.
Dan-Fox. Okay.
Dan does what?
Dan-Fox. Okay, so Dan-Fox, this is for you, my friend. The question was, of all your businesses, all your experience, what has been the biggest failure you've had in business?
Wow.
In business.
My biggest failure.
I'm going to add to that question because that's your question, but I want to say the biggest failure and then the lesson learned.
Have you got one in mind?
I've got...
For you, it's like, which one's the biggest?
Which
For me, it's like, can I find one?
I'm like, which one? I've got hundreds. Okay, my biggest failure. I'll tell you what it was.
Go on, let me think of mine while you tell.
I after my garage business, I had a franchise business, and my biggest failure was letting the customers dictate to me when they pay me, and not the other way around. Because we dealt with finance payments, and we would sell product, and we would allow them time to pay. Completely illegal, completely above board, all FCA regulated, but we would give them time to pay. So they would buy, say, a product off me, and it was £200, and they would pay like £25 a week towards that product. And my biggest failure was allowing them leeway on that, because I should have stuck to it. If they said they were going to pay me X amount per week and they didn't, I was too soft. I was very, very soft because I was like, yeah, don't worry about it, just sort it out next week. Don't worry about it, sort it out next week. But next week never come, because by the time next week came, all they paid me was the 1 week that they owed me, not 2 weeks. And that caused a lot of cash flow issues in my business. Now, you scale that up to having 400 customers paying you £20, £30 a week, and let's just say 20% of them don't pay you on time. Suddenly you've got a lot of cash flow issues in your business. So my biggest lesson was being too soft on my customers when they didn't pay me. The lesson I took from that was, it's your business, it's your terms. You set the rules. You set when people pay you, and if they don't pay you, there's consequences for such lack of payment. That's my biggest failure and my biggest lesson. What about yourself? Go.
Cool. I would say biggest failure. It's hard to pick
The thing is, we don't. I know why you're finding it difficult, and I find it difficult to think about failures because as entrepreneurs, we don't focus on failures.
No, I don't feel like I've got any regrets.
No, I've got no regrets. Don't get me wrong, I've got no regrets. But we don't focus on failures. We focus on, look, okay, this has gone wrong. How do we fix it? We don't dwell in the past. We don't dwell on, okay, so what? That went wrong. I don't care about that. How do we fix it?
It depends how you look at it. Okay, so I'll give you a couple of examples. So I've had like a couple of businesses where, because I've often had lots of businesses going at the same time. I've had a couple where I've put a lot of time and effort into, and then I've ended up thinking, you know what, this isn't worth it.
Yeah.
For the money, I'm making like very little money out, a couple of grand a month out of this, and I've scrapped them. So I've had that. Yeah. Is that a failure? I don't know.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing, I'd say that's probably it. That's probably it. Setting up businesses where I haven't done. The 5 things we're talking about next week, I haven't done, and that's where I've learned that from, because I've gone and gone, you know what? I can't actually replicate this business.
Do you know? It's very easy from us for people that are doing well in business. It's very easy for us to look back and say, like, what went wrong? Where did it go wrong? How do we fix it? But we don't look at the negative. We look at exactly what can we do to fix it, and what can we do, more importantly, to make sure it doesn't happen again. So I don't have not one regret about how I handled my business, because how I handled them back then means I do it differently now. So I would rather do it bad back then, where it's a small business, it's not financially going to cripple me, compared to doing it now where it would financially cripple me. Do you know what I mean? So like I look at everything as a positive. I look at everything as it's a lesson.
And doing nothing, I'd say, for the first few years. First few years, I didn't. I just very, very little. Proactively. One
thing I would say for any new entrepreneur looking to get into business, the biggest mistake you can make is not doing anything. Yeah. It's the biggest failure you can have, is just procrastinating and saying, I'm going to do that one day. Just do it now. Whether it be business, whatever it is, just do it. Just do it and work the mistakes out as you go. Iron them out as you go. Awesome. Brilliant. Well, guys, thanks ever so much for tuning in. We'll be back next week. Please do not fail to tune in. Come back to us, subscribe, comment below, like, ask us questions, get involved. We'll see you next week. See you next week, guys.